Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you how to make this bag. So always when working with fabric, you're going to look for this white line, or sometimes it has dots on it. This is the straight line. You always want to measure from this one and make sure everything is lined up and square. So the top piece of mine was 12 inches by 14 inches. I folded my fabric in half, so then I have to do less work and just cut everything all at once, and then I have two pieces for my two sides of my bag. So here I stole my dad's old jeans, so I'm just going to cut this down to size. I cut it to 14 because that's going to be my width of my bag, but you can make it any size you want, same with your length, it just depends on how you want it. So here I just folded the fabric in half and just measured it all the way to make sure it is square. This fabric is going to be the inside of my bag, so since I'm using two pieces for my outside of my bag, I need to make sure the inside is the same length. Also, this is how I want the outside of my bag to look, so I'm just going to cut this piece. Make sure you leave a little edge to sew it onto your bag. The other part of the jean, I'm just using for the straps, so I'm just cutting out two equal pieces for my straps and just making sure they're square so it's easier to sew later. I also cut out the pocket and some loopies to put on. I thought these would be a nice touch. Okay, so whenever putting fabrics together, you have to make sure that the good sides are together, because if you don't, you will see the seam on the wrong side, and that would be no good. When you begin sewing, you have to make sure you go forwards and backwards. This is called a back stitch. This makes sure that your fabric does not pull loose. And also make sure you do that at the end to secure your stitch. The first part was my top part and my little seam of the jean. So now this is the bottom of my jean that I'm sewing to the top part. Sometimes it's smart just to check on the other side to see if you're sewing it properly and you're not getting any of the other fabric caught that you don't want to sew. So this is just a good thing to learn and make sure you're doing it right. So here I'm just doing my pocket right on the top. So I'm only doing the pocket on the one side. The pocket is really thick because it's like double-sided jean, like two jeans pretty much on top of each other. So just make sure you work slowly and it doesn't get caught or anything. Also, I couldn't find any normal sewing pins, so I just used safety pins because my little clips wouldn't work here. For my loop I took off, I started doing it like this and I opened it, but for my other side I just kind of went over it because you can't open it like that anymore, and that made the other side kind of look different. So afterwards I just went backwards and just did the other side the same way. I found this easier doing it this way than opening it and then folding it and going back, and yeah. Iron your seams open, it makes it so much easier for sewing it later on. So here I'm taking both my sides and putting them together and just pinning them all around. Do not pin on top because that's where your bag needs to open. Make sure that these seams are pinned open so you don't get like a super thick seam. This part I found really hard to sew over because it's really thick, so just guide your fabric through and just like pull it through. That made it so much easier when you do it, just help guiding it through. For the ends, so what you do is you put your needle into your work like using the knob, and then you lift your foot and then you can turn your work. This way you make sure that there's no big gap in it. And here I just folded my strap fabric in half, making sure the good sides are together and just sewing this straight line down. When you're finally done sewing that, you're going to cut off all the extra fabric. This will make it easier when pulling it through. So this takes a really long time and it's really frustrating. So make sure you don't make your straps too thin. This makes it so much harder, especially when you're using jeans. You can use stuff around the house to help you poke it through. So this is when you're finally done flipping it around, you're just going to sew the other side down. But I would also do the opposite side, so then you have two stripes going down. That just looks so much prettier and it does make it flatter. This part of my bag got really thick and it's just like bulging out too much, so I'm just taking these scissors and cutting off the extra. This is my inside of my bag, so you're gonna sew along these lines but to leave a gap at the bottom and at the top. So when you are sewing, you are going to follow the same like square shape as your other bag, except you're gonna do a back stitch here and then move and leave your gap and do a back stitch again and work all the way at your top. So still remember to leave a hole on the side and on the top so you can open your bag. This part is really hard, so I had my mom help me. So you're gonna put both good sides together, and you're gonna put your outside, what you want your outside of your bag to be, inside of your bag that you want to be the inside. This sounds super weird and complicated, but it will make sense. And then put your straps in between that. So I didn't show this part because it was hard to do it on camera, so you're just gonna pin all the way around. Now you're gonna sew all of this together in a circle. This is kind of hard, so just make sure all your seams stay open and just work your way all the way around. This is the part why it's important to leave the hole. So you're just gonna put your hand in and pull your bag out and just put it right side out pretty much. And so this is where you can leave it, but I found it prettier if you move sew up around the top so it doesn't, like your inside part doesn't easily come out. And you also need to sew your little hole closed. So you can do it by hand and make it look prettier, but I don't have time for that. And I find it really frustrating, so I just did it by the machine and just sewed it. Like no one's going to see the inside anyway. And here I just worked in a really tiny seam just to go all the way around. Here, I'm just showing you all my pieces. So for this pocket, I liked it having like 2 secret pockets kind of, but you can work the top part, the loop you can put anything in, like keychains or anything. And this is my final result. I find it really easy to make and it's really pretty even with scraps. So thank you for watching and please like and subscribe.